Welcome back to another episode of Beauty by the Beaker. I'm Natalie.
I'm Sadie.
And we are two cosmetic chemists who, what are we doing?
Trying to give science a hot new makeover over here.
Ain't that the truth?
Basically, on this podcast, we take tough scientific concepts and make them easy to understand.
Yeah.
And we have fun while doing it.
We make them easy passive listening because no one wants to read a peer-reviewed article.
No.
So we're going to do that for you.
Turn us on while you're driving. Turn us on while you're cleaning the kitchen.
This is passive learning, baby.
Someone's got to do it.
We're here to take the wheel, but not the real wheel if you're driving. Keep your hands on that.
Both hands, 10 and 2, babe. Okay. Remember your lessons.
Well, we're back. I'm 30.
How does it feel?
Feels great.
Is life any different?
Well, life is a little different, actually.
Tell me more.
We added a new member of our family.
How many legs does this new member have?
Well, 4.
Ooh.
Yes, a little puppy.
Little baby boy.
Yes. So please support the podcast, like, subscribe, review, everything. Follow.
Yeah, we both have families to support.
Yeah, we both have sons.
Literally.
Sons that have mouths, big old mouths and big old jowls to feed.
I love to eat. If there's one thing Gibby likes to do,
is eat out of a puzzle. We have puzzles to fill with food.
Please help us fill our Kongs. Like and subscribe. Comment below.
Your support is directly feeding the mouths of our dogs.
Photos up here. And they're going to be besties. That's what I'm really excited for. Even though they'll probably be... Gims is probably going to be 6 times heavier than your dog.
Yeah. My dog full size is probably going to be around 15 pounds. Yours is going to be like 50.
He's 60 right now. He's a big boy.
I can't even imagine.
So
yeah, he'll probably get a little beefier.
Yeah, and he's only a year old, so his coat is gonna grow in, and he'll look.
And
bigger.
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday, Gibbs! He's a year old.
Picture of happy birthday, Gibbs.
So
are you doing anything for his birthday?
I need to. We're gonna board him so that he can go play with all of his friends at daycare. That's like the best birthday gift I can give to him.
True. Lots
of loves. I am going to make him a cake, though. I think I'm going to record a video of me making a cake.
That would be so fun.
So follow us on social media.
Yes.
I'm Sadie BXB.
I'm Nat BXB.
To see more content about our dogs. The only thing is he doesn't know it's his birthday, so I'm a little worried he might think that this is what we're doing now.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, where's my cake?
Yeah.
I'm like,
I love cake.
Literally, that was really good. Can I have it again tomorrow?
What is birthday and can I have another?
Yeah. So anyway, keep a lookout for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, lots of birthdays and lots of new things and lots of new things happening.
Lots of things.
It's a great month.
It is.
Happy October.
I know. Now we're getting into it. Hopefully everyone has decided what they're going to be for Halloween. I haven't.
Okay. I was going to say, I don't dress up for Halloween.
Well, you are this year.
Yeah. This year we have something brewing.
Me and my friends always dress as the same thing every year.
Yeah, do you guys have an idea of what you're doing this year?
We have an idea, but...
Are you keeping it under wraps for now?
For now. But you should come this year.
We should.
The costumes are always pretty,
well, what's
janky.
What's the idea? Oh my God. Okay. I would body that.
Kind of tempted to do, sexy, but then still fully paint my face and do the hair.
So funny. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if we can make it.
But what are we chatting about this week?
Oh my gosh. Well, if you haven't watched last week's episode, you should watch it because it's part 1 of this two-parter. So last week we talked about preservatives. This week we are going to be talking about a specific type of preservative called parabens.
So scary. I hear those
so spooky, so scary. Question mark? Are we sure?
Wait, why are they so scary?
Well, let me tell ya. We're going to get into it. Okay, so let me pull up my notes.
Speaking of pulling up notes, if you are wanting to learn more about today's episode or yesterweek's episode,
or 4 score episodes ago.
If you want to learn more about this week's episode or episodes previous, make your way over to our website where you can find notes.
Yeah, beautyxbeaker.com.
So go find them.
Go look. And that's where we have our sources as well, if you're curious to know where we got our information from.
Perfect.
Before we get into this, I have a surprise for you.
You do?
I do. Close your eyes.
They're closed tight.
Keep them closed.
Ooh, they're closed. I'm excited. I'm nervous.
You should be. This is really scary.
Is it a Halloween spook?
It's a spook and a fright and a haunt.
Oh no. All of the spookiest things.
Okay, open your eyes.
No.
Yeah. Guys, I sourced the hat. No, it's not the exact same as yours. Also, I can't center it. What the hell?
Yeah, it looks like maybe a different craftsman.
Like I have but a nub.
Yeah, but yours has these fancy teeth that mine don't have.
It does.
It's really exciting.
Mine can eat more food than yours can.
I can't believe you have one.
I know. I was shocked that I was able to find it, but we got to Oktoberfest and I told my friends, I'm here for one reason.
One reason only.
Actually, two reasons. First was the beer. Second, I needed to find this damn hat.
Mm-hmm.
And I found it. And also it was raining and I was protected.
That's wonderful.
It was incredible.
I'm so excited. We look so fun together.
We do. The only downside is that it is so itchy. Okay.
How cool.
Well, now that we're both hatted up,
let's
the way it's
meant to be.
The way it's meant to be. I felt so left out last week, so I'm glad I could find it.
Well, catch us in these cute little hats. If you're not watching, that's one reason to watch.
That's true. Okay, so like I said last week, we talked about preservatives. These are ingredients that keep products that have water in them from growing bacteria, yeast, and mold. And so this week, we're going to discuss a specific type of preservatives called parabens. So this week, I want to talk about what parabens are, why chemists use them for an entire century, and how a 2004 paper called the Darbre study completely set off years of fear, and what the actual data says about their risk.
Okay. I'm excited to hear what the actual data has to say.
Yeah, we're going to get into it.
Yay.
Okay, so before we get started, I do want to give like a very massive shout out, I guess, to Dr. Michelle Wong, who's a cosmetic chemist with a chemistry PhD. She has Lab Muffin Beauty Science. That's like her channel. And Dr. Andrea Love, who's an immunologist and toxicologist. They both wrote incredible articles about parabens, and I got a lot of my information from them. So I highly recommend reading their articles, supporting their channels and their work. They do incredible stuff.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah, so we'll have that linked in the description and also in the blog and show notes. But yeah, their articles are incredible, and I use them for a lot of my research.
Yeah, they're great sources.
They are. Okay, so as a recap, in case you didn't... It's Kit Kat time.
It's Kit Kat. Did you say recap?
A Kit Kat of last week's episode. To recap last week's episode, in case you didn't listen, which if you didn't, you should.
Definitely should.
Preservatives are something that preserves or has the power of preserving, as one might be able to guess.
Maybe.
And they're specifically additives that are used to protect against decay, discoloration, or spoilage. They're used in all sorts of products like food, toiletries, pharmaceuticals, and obviously cosmetics, which we talked a lot about last week. And they're used in products that have water in them to protect them from bacteria, fungus, and other microorganisms. So super important. If you don't have products that have preservatives in them, there are a lot of negative things that can happen. So what are parabens specifically? Do you want to give this one a go?
No.
Okay, fine, I'll do it. Parabens are a type of preservative that's commonly used to control microbial growth in various products. And the most commonly used parabens are methylparaben, ethylparaben, propylparaben, and butylparaben. There are a lot of different types, but basically it's different chain lengths. That's where they get their name from. There's like a starting molecule, and then they have different lengths on their chain. And because of that, they interact differently with different microorganisms. And a lot of products, you'll see mixtures of these parabens because they do slightly different things. They were first used in the 1920s, and they're great because they're really cheap. They're very effective at low concentrations. So as little as like 0.03% is used in cosmetics.
Yeah.
That's really, really low. And as little as 0.1% can completely preserve a formula. And they're often broad spectrum, which means they protect against all types of bacteria, fungus, or other...
Bacteria, yeast, and molds.
Exactly. All those little microorganisms that can be in your product.
All the things you don't want in your cosmetics.
Yeah, keep those away from me.
Or at least I don't want them in my cosmetics.
Yeah, speak for yourself. Some
True.
people want a little extra slime.
Yeah, I like my moisturizer carbonated, but from yeast.
Yeah. It smells like bread. Imagine using that plus your beef tallow. That's a whole sandwich.
That's true. Oof.
So we as formulators, well, not we, but formulators have been using parabens for almost 100 years. I only say not we because You're only 30.
That's true. That's true. I haven't been using them for hundreds of years. I've been using them for around 6, but not very frequently. Very frequently.
Even then. But in that period of time, the only reliably linked harmful health effect that comes from parabens is allergies, which does not happen to very many people. And it usually occurs on skin that's already broken.
Yeah.
We talked about that last week. They are very rarely allergenic, but they can be. But that's like really the only negative effect that they have.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to take a little bit of a detour, but this is going to matter throughout this entire episode, so keep this in mind. I want to discuss the idea between hazard versus risk. Have you heard of this?
No. Enlighten me.
Okay, so when we're having these sorts of discussions, it's really important to understand the difference between hazard versus risk. A hazard is something that can cause harm, and the risk is the chance of that harm happening, depending on different factors. So I'll give you an example. A hot stove is a hazard.
Yeah.
That's something that could cause harm to you.
Yeah.
But you only get burned if you touch it, and the level of risk depends on if you touch it, how long you touch it, if you touch it with just your finger or your whole hand, or you put your face on it, if you're using a pot holder, around the stove, etc.
Yeah.
There are different levels of risk depending on what you're doing. So the hazard is always the same. The stove is always hot, but the level of risk depends on the situation.
Yes. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Also, it seems with that example that you could argue that, yes, the stove is hot and that is a risk, but so is uncooked food.
Yeah.
Uncooked chicken.
Exactly.
And so then you'd have to weigh, like, if you were making chicken, is it worth the risk of this hazard of a hot stove to cook this food to eat it?
Exactly.
Or,
Yeah, we're always making these like micro calculations of risk every day.
Yes.
And I think a lot of the time people, especially when it comes to cosmetics and stuff, not as much in real life necessarily, but people will often look at something that's a hazard and immediately write it off. But the risk is the most important part.
Yeah.
If you just looked at a hot stove and said, that's dangerous, I'm never using a stove, that's not realistic.
No.
That doesn't make sense.
No.
There are ways to make it more safe. So I think that's important to keep in mind as we're having this conversation, and I'll go back to that at the end of this and we'll kind of discuss how that relates to our conversation today. Okay, so now we're going to get into the infamous Darbre study. Hey, have you heard about this study before?
Oh, not really.
Really?
Really?
It is one of the most popular studies, I feel, when it comes to cosmetics.
Yeah.
And it completely changed the entire cosmetic industry with this one study. So
Interesting.
let me explain. In 2004, there was a study that was published in the Journal of Applied Toxicology. It's called the Darbre study because Darbre was the name of like the main author or researcher on the study.
Yeah.
And so it shouldn't have even made it past the peer review process, but it had a lot of buzzwords like hormones, chemicals, and cancer.
We're really afraid of chemicals.
Chemicals. So scary.
Just kidding. Everything is a chemical.
Yeah. You don't need to worry about that.
Everything.
Literally everything. You are just one giant.
Unless you're in a vacuum.
But not this kind of vacuum.
Yeah.
A space vacuum.
Yeah, like a black hole.
Yeah. So because of those buzzwords, it got a lot of attention, especially in 2004.
Yeah.
Back then things were different.
Yeah.
But things were also really not that different at all.
No.
We'll explain. So in the study, they analyzed 20 human breast tissues that were cancerous, and the samples were frozen, and then they used analytical chemistry methods, like really sensitive chemistry methods, to assess the levels of different parabens in the samples. It's fine if you don't, but is there anything based on that you can think of that might be an issue in the study?
Maybe.
I didn't give you that much information.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to say with that level of information. I was going to say, like, I have assessed tissues for specific things.
What was your sample size?
It was pretty big.
Probably more than 20, right?
Definitely more than 20. Yeah, 20 is a very small number.
Yeah, that's like mostly what I was looking for.
Yeah, 20 is a very, very small number.
Yes.
One thing that's important to know about scientific research is, like, when I did my testing, we could show differences, but there is what's called a standard deviation. And the bigger your test range is, or like the more times you've repeated a test, the smaller that deviation gets, because you can narrow in. You can start to predict what is and is not an outlier, or like,
You also, with 20, It is an extremely small sample size, and you can't really get any information about trends with a sample size that low. Because if you have a really large sample size, you can start to actually see trends.
Yeah, and if it's only 20, you can't really get a lot of information. Like, is it 20 people from 20 different countries?
Mm-hmm.
Is it 20 people from the same place? Is it like 20 people of the same ethnicity? Like, there's so many other factors that go into it that 20 is just not enough to represent a population of human beings.
Especially because lifestyle as well matters so much.
It's possible that like the 20 people that they chose were all glue eaters. You know, like we don't know. And I'm not saying that eating glue gives you parabens in your tissues, but
we don't know anything about their lifestyle.
We don't know.
Yeah, exactly. So that was one huge issue with the Darbre study, is that 20 is such a small sample size.
Yeah.
They also didn't compare the cancerous tissue to normal breast tissue. The authors of the study are suggesting that parabens might be related to cancer, but without comparing the samples to normal tissue, it's impossible to say, because for all we know, normal breast tissue could also have the exact same levels of parabens as cancerous tissue. I'm not saying that's the case. That's not what we found, but just like
they didn't
figure out anything. So you can't say that parabens are linked to cancer if you don't even look at non-cancerous breast tissue. Basically, they concluded that because they found parabens in cancerous breast tissue, that parabens cause cancer.
Did they find them in all 20?
I don't know if they found them in all 20, but they were finding a lot of crazy things that didn't make any sense. So even if they had, it wouldn't have really meant anything.
Interesting.
But yeah, that's basically the claim of the study, is that parabens are estrogenic, which I'll explain.
Yeah.
Saying that they cause cancer. So,
yeah. But a very important part of a scientific study is having a control. So in this case, a control would be testing tissues of people that did not have cancer. And if you don't do that, then you have nothing to compare your results against.
Exactly.
So they don't really mean anything.
So the study only really tells us that some parabens may or may not exist in frozen breast tissue samples. Because that's another issue with it too. Like, they're using frozen samples, which is not a great way of determining real life, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to say in this case where they are using frozen samples without the information of like where these samples came from.
Yeah.
It's hard to say, because sometimes freezing a sample can help kind of like stop things from changing in them. So then you can test them more accurately.
Yeah. So yeah, the study doesn't really tell us anything about a relationship between cancer and the tissue. It doesn't tell us if the parabens were accumulating over time. It doesn't say how being exposed to parabens could have affected or accelerated cancerous tissue.
Yeah.
It doesn't say anything about how the cancer could have progressed. Like, it just doesn't give you any real information. They also, this is the craziest part of the study, is they were most likely using contaminated samples and instruments.
Oh.
Because like in these sorts of studies, when they're using really sensitive instruments, they have what's called a blank. And that's basically to account for noise, is what it's called.
Yeah.
Or just other kind of background things that show up. But their blank samples that they tested sometimes had higher levels of parabens than the breast tissue samples. So that goes to show that they probably had contaminated samples.
Yeah.
Because your blank should not theoretically be reading anything.
Exactly. Yeah. Like that's the point, is it's like supposed to be blank.
Exactly. Yes. That means that the parabens that they recorded in their samples might not even be from the samples themselves. They could be from the equipment that was contaminated.
Yeah. I wonder if there was some sort of like antimicrobial agent used at some point.
In the actual study, it said that they rinsed out their samples with like a sodium hydroxide wash. And they literally said in the study, it could have been contaminated instruments. Okay, that's wild.
Yeah.
And then also, the level of parabens they found was so unbelievably small. They ranged from 0 nanograms per gram to 12.8 nanograms per gram. For some context, a nanogram per gram, that measurement is essentially the same as 1 part per billion. 1 part per billion is roughly equal to 1 second in 31.7 years. That is minuscule.
Yeah.
And it's what? Anywhere from 0 to 12.8 seconds in 31.7 years. Nothing to stress over.
Yeah.
That is so tiny.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah, those are the levels that they were finding in the study. So after this study came out, people started to become afraid of parabens because they believed that parabens were linked to cancer. They were like, oh my gosh, they're finding parabens in cancerous breast tissue. And they didn't realize that the study was done badly.
Yeah.
It didn't really matter, the misinformation and the fear spread anyway. And so one specific claim that has come out from this is that parabens are estrogenic. So for a little more context, I kind of want to talk about how hormones even work because I didn't know that actually. You probably do.
A little bit.
Relatively. But I didn't take a class, so I didn't even know how hormones worked. Feel free to chime in on this one. But from what I understand from my research, we all have hormones in our body, which are basically chemical messages.
Yep.
So our glands release them into our blood, and then they're used to tell our cells when to do things. So it's like grow, use energy, store fuel, make milk, handle stress, or like set our body's temperature.
Yeah.
And in order to actually do any of these things, the hormones have to bind to hormone receptors. So it's basically like a lock and key. The hormone receptor is like the lock, and then it can only be turned on with the right key, which is the hormone.
Yeah. We talked about this. We talked about this in our sunscreen episode a little bit.
Yeah, about receptors.
Yeah, it's a very similar situation. With hormones are just sometimes it'll be called the ligand. I think that's a funny word. Ligand. But they're just like the key, essentially. And they can turn a lock in our body that then opens a gate that makes things move and causes processes to happen. I don't know. It is cool.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. Some specific examples of hormones are insulin, adrenaline, testosterone, and of course, estrogen. There are plenty of others, but so when a substance is called estrogenic, that means that it's behaving like estrogen in the body, but it's not actually estrogen. So it can switch on the same signals or like fit into the same lock that estrogen would. And that can lead to effects like cell growth, maturation, or protecting a cell from death. And it's not the exact right key, but it fits into the lock and turns the receptor on. But if you don't have the right key and the right lock, it can lead to some negative effects.
Interestingly enough, those negative effects are often called side effects.
True.
If you're using it in a medication.
Yeah, when you told me that was fascinating. That like drugs, the reason they have side effects is because sometimes they'll accidentally bind to the wrong thing. But it's also not guaranteed, and it's not the same for every person.
No.
That's why side effects are so different.
Yes.
Is it just random?
That's why there's like a list of side effects, is because they'll study and see like where it is binding. And it is something that is very, very well studied before a drug ever goes on the market.
Oh, yeah. Drugs
Especially
are
now.
Extremely well studied before.
In drug design, they can tell, they know what receptors we have in our bodies and have mapped that out really well, and then can kind of tell based on that, it can help aid in like the whole perspective of drugs in a human body. So there's other things that can be predicted as well before it's even tried on humans to be like, okay, well, that's obviously going to bind. There's also a lot of like cool programs and stuff that they use for testing binding. And
I wonder how AI has impacted that.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I bet it's impacted it quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm sure. So yeah, if something binds to the wrong receptor, it can have negative side effects. Our bodies just have very specific doses and timing. So if something is bound to that receptor and is turning it on, that messes with the body's ability to correctly dose hormones. And also, if something is in the receptor that's like mimicking a hormone, it can give the body a false high estrogen signal, and that can make the brain dial down the real hormone production.
I've always been afraid of drinking soy milk because soy has estrogen in it.
Really?
And I was always told that like if you drink soy milk, your body will become dependent on it. But then I did hear from a food chemist that that's not real. So then I tried soy milk, and I actually just don't like it as much as oat milk. So
it just doesn't taste good.
Yeah, it's just not my favorite. I'm an oat milk girl, but that was why I was afraid of it, is because I thought my body was going to become dependent on soy milk. Which is funny now, but like, yeah. Up until like a year ago, honestly.
Really?
Yeah, it's something that like if I actually thought about it, I'd be like, okay, I know enough that that's not the case, but it was still ingrained in my head from probably 2004.
Probably.
When soy milk became popular.
Yep.
So
That's fascinating. Yeah, overall, these estrogenic compounds are bad for the body, right?
Maybe.
But in this case, parabens are very, very weakly estrogenic.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like they're in high concentrations either.
No. So for some context, parabens have a binding affinity. That's like the likelihood or the ability for it to actually bind to the receptor. It is thousands of times weaker than actual estrogen. So if estrogen and a paraben are competing for the same receptor, it is never going to outcompete estrogen.
Yeah.
For some numbers, depending on the type of paraben, you would need anywhere from 10,000 to 100,000 times more to bind to the receptor, like the same amount of estradiol. Those levels, obviously, from the study aren't anywhere near where they need to be in order to actually activate the estrogen receptor.
Yeah.
Like, you're never going to outcompete.
Yeah, if it's so unlikely to bind already. It's like if you're going to go hang out with friends or something and you're like, I kind of like this friend, but then there's going to be all these people there that like they all get along so well.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I really want to hang out.
Yeah, and I'm not going to like try extra hard to.
Yeah, like it's not really my thing.
Yeah.
They're not really my people.
Yep.
Yeah.
But like I'll go if nobody else is there.
Yeah.
If I'm not competing with anyone else, like I'll go. Yeah, that's literally the exact same situation. When it comes to the risk of cancer, even ethinyl estradiol, which is an estrogen that's found in like oral contraceptive pills, that is 2 million times more potent than butylparaben, which is one of the most potent parabens. And even then, it is only associated with a small increase in cancer risk. So basically, it is 2 million times more potent, and even then, it's only slightly riskier when it comes to cancer. That doesn't mean it's going to cause cancer.
Yeah.
There's just a little bit of an elevated risk.
Yeah. Like with the paraben risk, we're already assuming that the elevated estrogen level is going to cause cancer. Yeah. So it's like this could raise estrogen levels and then that could cause cancer.
There are so many things that have to happen in order for parabens to be able to cause cancer. Like there are just so many steps. None of those steps are being taken in any cosmetic product.
No.
So what happened after the Darbre study?
Tell me.
So after the study, misinformation spread like wildfire, and people started demanding replacements for parabens because they believed that parabens cause cancer, and so we can't use those anymore.
Obviously.
But a lot of these replacements are more irritating and less well-studied.
Yeah.
So basically, because of the Darbre study, formulators have been forced to switch from something that is very safe. We've been using it for 100 years. We have so many studies on how safe it is and how effective it is, to things that have way less data on them, possibly less safe and more irritating because of the misconceptions around this study. It's crazy. So one big example are the itchy M's. Have you heard of those?
Yeah.
So it's, let me try to read these. One take wonder. Methylisothiazolinone or methylchloroisothiazolinone.
That is a mouthful for sure.
It's an itchy M and it's a mouthful, itchy mouthful. So these are preservatives that were used after parabens. They were like a very common paraben replacement. They cause allergies in roughly 10% of the population, whereas 1% of the population has allergies to parabens. So they are way more irritating and way more allergenic than parabens are. Then there are other preservatives like phenoxyethanol. That's probably one of the most common ones we use today. I don't really see the itchy M's used in.
No, those kind of went out as fast as they went in.
Because they're itchy. So preservatives like phenoxyethanol and formaldehyde donors are also a lot more irritating than parabens. And also, we don't have long-term studies on any of these alternatives because we haven't really been using them. So we don't really know anything about their safety long-term. I personally would rather use a preservative that has been used for 100 years and has been proven to be safe rather than replacement preservatives that we have not been using for very long.
I don't want people to be afraid of current preservatives. The thing that's so great about parabens is that they can be used in such low percentages, or like low concentrations. And to be able to replace them, we've had to use a lot of combinations of materials.
Yeah.
And a lot of those do have more irritation potential than parabens did.
Yeah. And there's a range too, right? Like the itchy M's are probably the most irritating that I know of. phenoxyethanol is generally less irritating than that, but it can be irritating for some people. So
and
there's still alternatives.
Yeah. And like phenoxyethanol, we know it is irritating above a certain percentage. So there is a use level on it.
Yeah.
But even just like that on its own is not enough to fully preserve a product.
Yeah.
So phenoxyethanol has to be used in combination with other things. So it's already maxed out in its percentage. And then you have to use other things on top of it.
Yep.
And so it's still safer than using things that are not preserved.
Yeah.
But we just haven't really found anything that replaces parabens.
Yeah, I think overall it's just unfortunate that parabens were what was demonized.
Yeah.
Because there was no reason for it and they were so safe and so effective. And so it is just unfortunate that we've had to use replacements that aren't as non-irritating, I guess. It's like out of all the ingredients, take away parabens from us because of this study.
Yeah, that is a shame because it would be nice to have highly preserved cosmetics that are low irritation.
Exactly.
And that is something that's very difficult to attain now. Preservative systems are hard as a formulator. They're hard. And yeah, it's sometimes you do risk irritation for people with sensitive skin.
Or babies.
Yeah.
And two, I feel like a new preservative is being demonized every day in the media. Preservatives are very often misunderstood. So there are alternatives to parabens that we have also stopped using because people believe that they cause negative effects. So it's like what we can use is getting smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
Because of misinformation that's getting spread.
Exactly. I mean, that's still our goal is giving people a better idea of what the different types of preservatives are and how they might give your skin irritation or lack thereof. Because I do think if you're just hearing, oh, phenoxyethanol is irritating, it doesn't irritate my skin.
Yeah.
Personally. I have no problems with it, but that doesn't mean that it's not irritating for everybody. So being aware that like it can cause irritation and being able to do that trial and error for yourself, like this one seems like a similar product, but is preserved differently instead of just saying like, I need to replace my products because they have phenoxyethanol if that's not a problem for you.
Yes. Or telling other people that they need to replace their products because phenoxyethanol is whatever. I think also the main thing to keep in mind is I don't want people to get scared of these preservative replacements. I don't think either of us do. What you should be scared of is unpreserved cosmetics.
Yes.
Those are always going to be irritating. They can cause very dangerous side effects.
Yeah.
So the alternatives to parabens are still much better than no preservatives at all.
Yeah. A lot of people like to compare the things they put onto their skin to the things that they eat. That's like a common thing right now. It's like, you wouldn't eat your lotion.
Yep.
So why would you put it on your skin? Which I'd have qualms with that argument because, again, your skin is meant to be a barrier and it's not supposed to be treated the same as the insides of your body. But I digress.
There's a reason I don't eat my lotion.
There is a reason. But if we do want to make this comparison for a second, if I could humor those who like this comparison, you would not want to eat unpreserved food that's been sitting on your counter for a week.
Yep.
And lotion and food have a lot more in common than a lot of people think. Did I say lotion? Just lotion?
I didn't even catch it. I was like, yeah, lotion is very similar to my food. Lotion equals food?
Lotion is food. If you think, well, let's not get into burger lotion. Mayonnaise?
Do not ever call it that again.
Mayonnaise is an emulsion. Mayonnaise is lotion. Mayonnaise is lotion for your food.
Okay, anyway, strike that one from the record. That's horrifying to think about.
But yeah, you wouldn't want to eat mayonnaise that's been sitting on your counter.
Yeah.
I also probably wouldn't want to put mayonnaise that's been sitting on my counter on my skin.
Yeah, different reasons.
But either way, if it's unpreserved, I don't want it in, on, or around my body.
No. Well, and speaking of ingesting things, there's no proven link between parabens and breast cancer or any other cancer, like we've said. So regulators have even set what's called an acceptable daily intake for parabens. So that is the amount that you could eat every single day for the rest of your life without having any risk to your health. The acceptable daily intake for parabens is 10 milligrams per kilogram of body weight per day.
That's a lot.
For somebody who is 150 pounds, because we're in the US, that is 700 milligrams per day you could eat it.
You could take a tablet.
Yes. You could take a tablet. You could lick it off a spoon. You could straight parabens every single day for the rest of your life, and you would be fine.
Wow.
Yes.
My gob is smacked.
That's what I'm saying. And like Nat just mentioned, eating something and putting it on your skin are very different.
And you do want to take, like, as a formulator and as scientists, you do want to consider ingesting, because most people apply products with their hands and then they'll use their hands to eat food, or
if you have a lip balm, like
yeah, like it should be taken into consideration that, like, if you're using a cosmetic, it could end up in your mouth, because who amongst us hasn't like accidentally sprayed sunscreen directly into their mouth?
Yep.
And by directly, I don't mean directly.
Not spritzing her spray sunscreen in her mouth.
And who hasn't?
Seriously, sound off in the comments.
But yeah, I'm sure that's why they test things like that, is just to prove, look, you could eat this much and you would be fine.
Exactly. Well, yeah, and like we said, usually you're not eating your cosmetics, you're applying them. So
that is the directed use.
That's what we intend for it. Unless you're not and you want to eat your sunscreen. Parabens in skincare are usually used at 0.01% to 0.3%. Very, very small amounts.
Very small.
And so if you used 100 grams of product, which is basically like it's 3.6 ounces. So
could you take that on an airplane? 3.6 ounces?
I think 3.4 is the limit. But yeah, think of a travel size airplane container. That's this amount. If you used that amount in one go, that would have 10 to 300 milligrams of parabens, depending on the concentration. Only 1 to 10% of that amount might absorb through your skin. So a very, very small amount, which is 0.1 to 30 milligrams absorbed. Remember how you could eat 700 milligrams and still be fine?
Yeah.
0.1 to 30 is a lot less than that.
Yeah.
And
that's assuming you're putting on a lot of product.
Again, that's assuming you are putting on one travel size bottle's worth of product every single day. That's at most 30 milligrams of parabens.
A lot of lotion.
Yeah.
And not a lot of paraben.
No. So you could eat, 670 if you want to ingest the rest of your daily intake.
Well, where else are you going to fit in the rest of your parabens?
It's true. You got to get them all. Anyway, hopefully those numbers made sense and you didn't tune out after listening to them. But basically, normal cosmetics in the way that we use them don't even come close to an exposure level that's possibly risky. So in the case of parabens, if we're going back to that hazard versus risk conversation, parabens can be considered a hazard. There's something that could potentially cause cancer, as are many other things in this world. But the most important factor is the risk. So what's the risk of them actually causing cancer? Based on what we know, that risk is extremely
very low.
Yeah. But because they're potentially a hazard, they've been demonized.
So has there been any tests to support the study?
No. So there really has not been. That's a big frustration, I think, within the cosmetic industry. There hasn't really been another test that tests this study to prove that it's wrong.
Who's going to do it?
Should we get into that? Actually, no, I'm not doing analytical chemistry.
Yeah, analytical chemistry is hard, but if you're out there doing it, I have a project for you.
Yeah, literally.
Someone needs to set the record straight on this paraben thing.
Yeah, there have been plenty of other studies done about the safety and efficacy of parabens.
Right.
Before 2004 and also after, but there hasn't really been like a one-to-one study to determine this one. But the author of this original study did come out 6 months later and they basically amended it. And they said, quote, "Nowhere in the manuscript was any claim made that the presence of parabens had caused the breast cancer. Indeed, the measurement of a compound in a tissue cannot provide evidence of causality." They literally came out and said, yeah, parabens, like we didn't say parabens cause cancer, but it came out 6 months after the study. Everyone had already latched on to the original one. So that didn't really gain a lot of traction.
That is the hard thing with scientific studies, is like it really is a collective body of knowledge that we have to look at. And you can't look at one singular study. It's very important as a scientist to acknowledge that your work is not proving anything.
Yes.
You're just adding to the collective information.
And it's often a very small amount of information that you are adding to the collective.
Yeah.
Like, if you're doing a study well, it's typically like a very small amount of information. Not that this author necessarily said this, but like the fact that people think that one study linked parabens to causing cancer. No. So many more studies need to be done after this in order to explore this idea. This is truly just like an offshoot.
Yeah.
And it's badly done.
Yeah. Basically, I feel like when you do a scientific study, it just opens up, here's all the new questions that you've unlocked based on what you found here. But it never answers any questions, if that makes sense. It just gives you new questions to look at. So the most that this did is give us the questions of...
Are parabens in non-cancerous breast tissue?
Yeah, like that's another question that needs to be explored, is that, and trends with the concentrations of parabens in tissues, and studying absorption of parabens. Just all of these things that would add to the safety and efficacy of parabens.
Yeah.
But this one thing showing that they exist doesn't say anything
useful. Yeah, and there have been plenty of studies that have been done since this one. None of them have been able to reliably link parabens to causing cancer.
Yeah, I feel like this is a good example, is saying that doctors cause cancer. Because doctors are usually the ones that give the diagnosis, and they're usually involved. It's like saying, well, if a doctor hadn't been there to tell you you have cancer, who's to say you didn't get cancer from the doctor?
Exactly.
Obviously, we can say, like, doctors aren't giving people cancer by delivering the diagnosis to them.
Yeah, there's just nothing that you can really get from this study, I guess.
Yeah.
So because of the Darbre study, parabens have essentially been removed from cosmetics. These days, I rarely see products that have parabens.
Yeah.
I also rarely formulate with them. I don't have very much experience with
Very
it.
uncommon.
So basically, the study single-handedly changed the beauty industry, and it forced formulators to pivot to other things. And it sucks because, like we've said, parabens are such great ingredients, but because of misinformation and because of public outcry and people demanding that companies stop using parabens in their products, they're no longer used in everyday life. And instead, we have to use different alternatives that are supposed to be more irritating.
Yeah.
So I think this just goes to show how important scientific literacy is and how not all science is good science.
Yes.
There's definitely a range.
Yeah.
But if you don't have scientific literacy, it'd be really hard for you to know whether or not that study was well done.
Exactly. Yeah.
So then that's why we need to rely on experts like Dr. Wong or Dr. Love to be able to use their knowledge and experience to look at these studies and critically analyze them and say, this was not well done. You don't need to be worried about this.
Yeah.
Or vice versa. It's important to get your information from reliable sources. Like I said, I highly recommend that you follow them. We also have a lot of other trustworthy sources that we follow. We like getting our information from. So I'll have a list of my favorite creators and scientists in the blog post as well. But yeah, basically in conclusion, parabens are not the spooky ingredients you've been told they are.
Ooh.
Instead, the fear of parabens has haunted the cosmetic industry.
Wow. Yeah, this study seems to be continuing to haunt.
Yes.
All of us.
It really is haunting our everyday lives. But basically what I want to leave you guys with is that safe cosmetics need preservation. Full stop. They need to be preserved. And it's important that we as consumers understand why preservatives are important and continue to ask companies to produce products that have proper preservation systems and not contribute to misinformation like we've seen with parabens.
It's easy to kind of get your bag by scaring people into thinking your product is better, but shame on companies that do that.
Seriously. And we need to stop supporting them.
Yeah. Teach people that our products are better because they have parabens and those don't hurt you.
Yes. Or
probably, unless you're the 1% that it does.
True. But yeah, that's what I have today for parabens. That's the end of the preservatives episode.
Yeah, well, I'm sure, like we said, just opens up a flood of other questions.
Truly.
I think this will also be a continued series because there's so many other preservative ventures that would be so interesting.
It was really hard to narrow down my notes to I agree. Hopefully you guys learned something and you understand that you don't need to be scared of parabens or preservatives. Yeah. You should be scared of the spooky little microbes in your product.
Exactly. Hopefully, if nothing else, this gave you a new perspective on it. And when you see paraben free as a claim, you can say like, why?
Yeah.
And then,
I don't like that.
Yeah.
Give me some parabens.
Yeah.
I miss them.
And then you can know, okay, well, if this doesn't have parabens in it, what is preserving it?
Exactly. Maybe we'll do like a whole episode.
Yeah.
About all the different types of preservatives, how to look for them, if anyone's interested in that.
Yeah. Yeah. Let us know if you would like a more specific deep dive on the types of preservatives.
Yeah.
Because
it's not really that relevant to consumers, but
no, but
I think
it could
it's interesting.
be. I think it could be helpful for people to know what other preservatives are out there, because if phenoxyethanol, you do have an irritation to it. If you wanted to replace that, you might want to know what other things are antimicrobial and being able to look for your like antifungal.
And of course, a chelator.
Of course.
We always got to look for a little chelator.
Of course. Some EDTA. Yeah. Anyway, let us know if you have any other preservative questions. But if not, please continue to our social media, BeautyX everywhere for podcast things, beautyxbeaker.com for show notes, sources, merch coming soon.
Yeah, we are going to have merch.
Use code BXB10 if you want to get 10% off of our first ever merch items.
Use it. A special little gift for our podcast listeners.
I think that's about all, right?
I think so.
Thank you guys so much for joining us.
Now we need to go get Nat a puppy.
Let's go get me a puppy.
All right, we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.